So for GTV6 benefit, we're going to do the joint City Council redevelopment meeting next. Welcome to the August 30th, 2011 joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and Glendale Redevelopment Agency. Can we have a roll call for the City Council, please?
Council members Manukian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Friedman.
Here.
And roll call for the redevelopment agency, please.
Agency members Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Manukian.
Here.
We are going to take the items out of order and do number 2 first and then number 1 second. Please read item 2.
Madam Mayor, if I may, let me just read our report so the audience at home and the public knows that we posted the agendas for this meeting properly. The agenda for this August 30th, 2011 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, August 25th, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. And per your direction, I will now read item number 2 into the record first. Director of Community Development regarding request from the Harley-Davidson Love Ride Foundation for endorsement of the 28th Annual Love Ride fundraising event to a council motion authorizing endorsement. And I believe there's also some comments by staff member, Assistant Director Phil Lanzafame.
Okay, Mr. Lanzafame?
As Mayor, members of the City Council, and Mr. Chairman, members of the Redevelopment Agency. Today we're here to seek endorsement for the 28th Annual Love Ride. The Love Ride began in 1981 as the Harley-Davidson Glendale Bikers Carnival. It was to raise funds for muscular dystrophy. What it has grown into is the largest single-day motorcycle event in the country. But beyond that, and the number of people that they draw, and at the height of the popularity and economy, I should say, over 20,000 people. But beyond that, the Love Ride Foundation has raised over $20 million in the last 27 years for mostly children's charities. The city has been a longtime supporter of this event, and in fact, the Redevelopment Agency has been a sponsor of $15,000 for several years going back. With the recent stay on redevelopment agencies, we are unable to contribute financially. However, the Love Ride Foundation is asking for the city's endorsement to not only garner support, but also any other benefits that may come along with that. One of those, if they are available, may be the use of reserve officers to reduce the police cost, but that would only be if they were available. The event has been reduced in size, again, given the economy over the last couple of years. The foundation has an idea to go back to its roots and now start rebuilding. Last year, there's about 1,600 riders. This year, the goal is for 5,000, and then progressively move our way back up. Last year was it was a smaller event, but nonetheless, it was quite fun here in Glendale, and then at the event afterwards. I know Councilmember Quintero and then Mayor Najarian were there, and both took a little ribbing from the Grand Marshal Jay Leno. But it was a really fun day for everybody. So staff is recommending your endorsement, and I know that Oliver Shoku, the president of Glendale Harley-Davidson, is here if you have any questions.
Right.
Well, I fully endorse the city's efforts in addition to all of the good things that the foundation has done in terms of raising money. It's a tremendous boost to the merchants. In the past, I've talked to bikers from France, from Germany, from Spain, literally from all over the world, that many of them whom were staying at the Hilton and other local hotels. Of course, the restaurants are full that morning right into, sometimes into the lunch period. Not everyone rides up to Castaic or all the different locations. So anyway, it's a financial boost to the merchants, and I think it's something that we should continue to do. I think using the reserve officers would be perfect, and they're going to start rebuilding. I guess if the goal is 5,000, I don't think they're going to have any problems hitting 5,000s, but I'm sure it'll grow back to to what it was a few years ago. And actually, the foundation and the Harley-Davidson dealership, they had the good sense to understand when the economy tanked that it wasn't quite going to work the same way. And so they scaled it back and, in my opinion, did a very good job to start the rebuilding process.
Are there any other comments?
Well, I agree, and I think it's a great boost to the economy locally, and certainly the funds that are raised for the charitable purposes are certainly worth it, so I wholeheartedly support it.
Mr. Weaver?
I have a question for Oliver. Yeah, I have a question. I don't think I've asked you this question before. When you started this 28 years ago, did you have any idea it was going to grow like this? Was it just a feel-good thing? Well, we'll try it a year or two.
I just figured maybe it'll go on for 5 years at the most. At least that's what I was told by the muscular dystrophy representative that came out and encouraged me to participate in raising money from MDA. And he said, well, typically these things go for about 5 years. And but I'm glad it has lasted this long.
Yeah, just curious, because I don't think anybody can conceive of something like this growing so big. You should have done it.
I hope to continue it, and it's become a legacy of mine. And now my children are involved, so I hope they'll pick it up and
Very good.
run with it.
Very good. Thank you, Oliver. It's a great event.
And to your credit, Oliver, it is an extremely well-managed event. These guys are not Boy Scouts, and they don't like to wait in line or get the hassle and, the run around. And these guys are motorcycle aficionados. We've got one on the dais here. He gets a little cranky sometimes, too, and we delay the agenda items. But you guys run it very well, and it's smoothly run, and you get them going in the right direction, along with our police department, and everyone gets a few laughs at the beginning and encouragement with Jay Leno, as well as yourself, and I do echo the remarks of my colleagues.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the consul and mayor to come out and join us October 23rd this year.
Did you say October 23rd?
Yes. And I'll send a formal invitation by mail, but since I have the opportunity, I'd like to invite you all to come out and participate.
That's a special day for me,
Yeah.
That's my birthday.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Thanks.
To continue.
Well, actually, Mr. Najarian, you made a good point. It's interesting, just like cruise night, how little the police have had to do over the years. You would anticipate with the large crowd, both at cruise night and at the Love Ride, that there would be issues, and in fact, hardly any, none that I know of. Well-behaved motorcyclist.
Which is unheard of, is that what you're saying?
It's also very early in the morning.
Well, I just hope that if the city thinks of any other creative ways of helping them out besides the reserve officers, that we take that opportunity, because it's a great cause. It helps our city, but most importantly, it helps people that really need the help. So if there's any other way that we can find to support them in lieu of being able to write a check or even provide those kinds of in-kind services, let's keep our eyes open.
Ms. Mayor, if the situation does change with the redevelopment agency, we'll certainly bring it back to you for a formal sponsorship. We'll stay in touch between now and Mr. Mnuchin's birthday, the Love Ride Day.
Well, I'm glad that even without the agency support, that the Love Ride's going to be able to continue this year. I commend you for keeping it going in these difficult times. So with that, can we have a motion for council?
Two-way. Move it.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Mnuchin?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Friedman?
Yes. And before you go away, Mr. Shoku, I'm very happy to present you with the mayor's commendation for all of the great work that you've done. And it's to you and to the Harley-Davidson Motor Company, Incorporated, and I'm going to just read it. Honoring your distinguished leadership and outstanding community service to our city since 1976, I highly commend your long list of deserving awards and achievements, generosity of spirit, and your willingness to share the time and energy necessary to be a successful business owner. Your successful signature annual event, the Love Ride, began in 1984 and has raised over $23 million for various worthwhile charities and affected the lives of thousands of people in a proactive way. Your life's work is an inspiration to us all. And I'm going to ask our resident biker, Mr. Quintero, to present this. Congratulations. And if you want to say a few words, you're more than welcome to.
I know you have more important things to discuss, so I'm just very honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me say a few words. Let me say a few words for him, because he is, as you can see, a very down-to-earth and humble person. I first visited this dealership in the late 1970s. He is an engineer. Incidentally, he came from Detroit and bought this dealership, so he literally built the business himself along with his family now. And what strikes me throughout the years, the kind of family atmosphere that he's always had there at the dealership, and all of the employees that work at this dealership, how happy they are. They are very happy. Whenever I'm there, I always let him know how well they treat customers. A lot of them live in Glendale, so they're actually very supportive of what we're doing here at the city. I don't have to say how much sales tax we get from this organization, but it's a lot. Harley-Davidson and the parts are quite expensive, and so it's just a tremendous business, and it's a real pleasure to have him here in town, all the things that he does. He's really the anchor for San Fernando Road there on that corner, so it's great to have him. And as he's doing more and more traveling, so his children are taking over the business more and more, so I'm sure it's going to continue.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Oliver.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, the first item on the agenda is City Attorney regarding compensation to council members for service on redevelopment agency, discussion of other compensation issues, including council compensation and medical insurance. At 1A is urgency ordinance for introduction. 1B is council motion providing direction to staff.
Thank you. Mr. Starbird or Mr. Garcia, who am I going to?
Go to Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council and agency. The item before you has to do with the salary paid to the members of the redevelopment agency. As you know, there is a state law provision that caps the compensation paid to agency members to $30 per meeting for a maximum of 4 meetings a month, unless the particular city has more than 200,000 residents. In 2002, the council adopted an ordinance adjusting the salary after the Department of Finance certified that the city had a population of over 200,000 people. In recognition of the additional workload being taken upon by the agency. In March of this year, the United States Census released its census figures for Glendale, and that number was a little under 192,000 people, and that was for the 2010 census. In April of this year, the Department of Finance, which certifies estimates on a yearly basis, increased that to a little bit over 192,000 people. As a result, our office began to analyze the impact of that as it related to the agency member salaries. There is a provision in state law which, for council salaries, provides that the salary cannot be adjusted during the existing term until a new council member begins a term. And so we thought we'd look at that and see if there's any similar provision for the agency members. There isn't. We also looked at constitutional issues, whether there was any constitutional reason why the salary could not be adjusted currently. And although there's some authority on it, there's nothing specific as it relates to this. And given the fact that it's pretty laid out pretty clearly in the statute that the agency member salaries have to be capped at $30 a meeting, we adjusted that. We're bringing this ordinance before you to adjust the salary for the agency members to the $30 per meeting, 4 meetings a month maximum set forth in the statute. And again, I do want to state very clearly that the Department of Finance estimates are valid estimates. They certify them on a yearly basis, and state law clearly provides that we are entitled to rely on those estimates to determine our population and make the decisions that we do based on that number. So before you is an ordinance, urgency ordinance to reduce the salaries of the agency members. In addition, 2 other items that we put in the report, one having to do with council salaries. The council can adopt an ordinance adjusting the salaries that are paid to you as council members by 5% per year since the last increase. The council last increased the council salaries in 2005, which did not become effective in 2007. So the council could give us direction to bring back an ordinance to adjust salaries again by 5% a year, which would not take effect until April 2013. Lastly, as mentioned in the report, the council also has the discretion to adjust the amount of the city's contribution to the medical benefits that are paid to council members. Currently, it's in line with what are paid to the city executive group, but the city is authorized as a charter city to pay the entire 100% of the city's contribution to the medical benefit. The contribution per council member would be either $250 per month per council member or $350 per month per council member, depending on the number of benefits that council member has on their plan. So if the council wants to provide us direction to do that, we can do that, and we bring back a resolution for you to make that change for you as well. We can do that if at the same time the ordinance is brought back for adoption. So that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions before I go to the public? Okay, I have one card, Barry Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Barry Allen. Looking at the staff report and something we've been following since March when the actual census figures were released, I have certain questions, and one of them goes directly to increasing the City Council's salary at 5%. I do believe if you look at the law for general law cities that the city adopted in the same general government code section where it speaks to the 5%, it also says language like in cities over 150,000 up to and including 250,000 population, up to and including $800 is what can be paid per month. So when you factor that in that particular section with the 5%, right now you're getting $1,100 a month. And so if you take a look at the city's the charter and the amendment, it pretty well spells out that Glendale has accepted, and also in the staff report, has accepted the being qualified as a general law city for the purpose of paying their city council. And unless there's another rabbit to be pulled out of that, I would wonder about that. I would also wonder, looking at the compilation of the compensation for the council showing $38,700, the amount that was reported to the state per council member of December 31st last year was $41,292. So somehow or there's a few $1,000s that was missing in those particular calculations. So I would and also suggest that if you increase the amount being paid for your health benefits, that certainly could come into play when the executives demand the same thing, because everybody has to be paid the same, as I recall being an employer of 1,000 people in the past. So I think you need to take a serious look at that. You need to take a look at all of the language in that government code section, not just the 5%. It's not being held in isolation. And I think that you're going to find that about the only thing you can do is make the statutory change in the redevelopment pay. Thank you. I'm Barry Allen.
Mr. Garcia?
Madam Mayor, let me just briefly respond. Mr. Allen's correct that the statute does limit the council salaries for a city of our size to $800, but then what it says is, notwithstanding that, the council can then adopt increases of up to 5% a year since the prior increase. So, in fact, our council salaries were set at $800 a month prior to 2007, when the council in 2005 adopted that ordinance to increase it by 5% a year, I think going back 8 years. because the council had never adopted an increase or adjustment to council salaries since the time that the charter provision was adopted in 1982. So the council salary that you receive now is lawful, and then if you were to adopt a subsequent ordinance to increase it by 5% a year, that ordinance would also be lawful. With respect to the difference between the $38,700 and the $41,000, my recollection is that has to do with the numbers that I put into the report. That's the actual payments that go to you as council members, as an employee, so to speak. The additional amount is the $200 that the city contributes to the retirement benefit, and since I didn't include that in the table, since that wasn't an actual, it's a cost to the city, but it wasn't a payment that goes to you. So that was the difference.
It's not on the table, but it's in a footnote right below.
Correct. You are correct. So that's the difference on that issue. So those are the two responses that I have on it.
Hey, are there any comments?
If I can, let me speak to the third item he raises, which is the consistency with the executive group. The difference here is, of course, that even under the best of circumstances, the City Council members are looking to a reduction in their compensation of upwards of $12,000 a year, even with these adjustments, not including an adjustment to the council compensation you could make effective the next election. There is no other group of employees that is taking that kind of a reduction in compensation.
What percentage is that?
40%.
40%.
Yeah, easy. Well, in the total compensation, 40%. The loss, even with the adjustments, is in the neighborhood, if you included the council adjustment that could occur in 2013, the loss is between $9,700 and $8,500. But without that, because it wouldn't be effective for 2 more years yet, the loss is between $11,000 and a little over $12,000 a year. No other group is taking that kind of a reduction in compensation. So I don't think the two are comparable. I think you're fully justified.
I thought the reduction was greater, Mr. Starbird. $1,200. That's
Well, let me-
$1,200 a month.
Let me do the math. The GRA salary is $1,400 a month, which is a loss of $16,008. But you do keep $120 a month, which reduces that hit to about $15,360. If you include the health, you're somewhere between $3,000 savings and $4,200 savings, which reduces the $15,300 down to somewhere between $11,000 and $12,000 and change.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Weaver?
I'll start off from my standpoint. I'd go for the health increase for the $250 across the board for everybody. But I don't mind putting on the agenda compensation for the 5%. We are the third largest city in LA County. And I guess you could have some justification for us trying to recoup some of the 40% loss we've taken in salary. So none of us are going to get rich off this council salary. So that little bit, I think, is fully justified.
Any other comments? Mr.
Well, I'm more interested in the health increase and a little more hesitant on the salary increase, just, symbolically, because in fact, as was mentioned, the total compensation is certainly down super significantly. I'll let whatever the majority wants to do will be fine with me.
Thoughts or comments?
All those,
Mr.
I'll make motions on either of those.
Mr. Starbird?
Just a reminder on the adjustment on a going forward basis is, as Michael points out in the staff report, the government code provision is it can't become effective until there's been a change on the city council. So that couldn't become effective until the election of 2013. My encouragement to you, as it has been to former councils I worked for, is you should keep those salaries consistent with whatever the state law provides. That's what the electors in Glendale provided back when the charter was adjusted. And the result is you allow future councils to begin to slip behind, and at some point when it's a catch-up, or somebody wants to do a catch-up, then you find yourself in a hole, just like we find with our various fees and charges that we try to maintain on a consistent basis. So this action today isn't necessarily for the entire City Council, because only 2 of you would be assured of being here in 2013. 3 of the seats are up for election. So my view is you should look at this as keeping these salaries current for successor council members so the compensation doesn't fall behind. My guess would be that the population figure, given where we currently are in the economy, is not likely going to get back to 200,000 by that date either. There will come a time, potentially, when we're back above 200,000, the council could adjust the redevelopment compensation if redevelopment still exists. But in the meantime, it's unlikely that that will occur by 2013.
Mr. Najarian.
Question. If the 5% is agreed to and passes, what is the actual dollar amount that would realize to the council members?
It would be going back 4 years, it would be 20% of 1,100, so whatever.
About $220 a month.
Yeah.
So it's it would be retroactive?
You can
No,
do
it would not be retroactive. It would not.
No, not retroactive, but you can make the adjustment from the time of your last adjustment, the way the state code reads, at 5% per year from the last date at which it was adjusted. So they allow you up to 5%. You could also adjust it for less than 5%, but your maximum would be 20% because you can't compound it.
Right.
20% on the last salary, which is $1,100. So you could adjust it as much as $220 a month. But it wouldn't be effective until there has been an election and newer re-elected council members seated, which would be April of 2013.
I mean, the whole issue of council compensation really calls into question who do we want running for city council? Not in an individual sense, but who does one want running for a city council? With a very low salary, clearly you can't support a family on that amount. So you would either have to be independently wealthy or someone who's got a steady pension coming in. It really couldn't be someone who's in his productive employment years, because he would be foregoing presumably a significant salary. You would pretty much be eliminating professionals. I know, being a professional, no lawyer jokes, please. It's very difficult to leave a law practice and devote 30-plus hours a week to the practice of a city council person. My salary has taken a huge hit. Mr. Mnuchin warned me about that several years ago, and he's right. So do we want only the rich and the well-off to run? Are we foreclosing this from others who have decent jobs but who want to serve the city and do what they can to make Glendale or any other particular city a better place? So really, I think that's what it comes down to. No one's getting rich up here. At most, this helps tide over some of the losses that you otherwise experience by donating your time to the city, to the redevelopment agency, to the housing authority. And our workday doesn't end when the lights go off on Tuesday evenings at the city council dais. I don't need to tell you folks that there's meetings throughout the week. There's evening events that you have to go to, and it really is quite a strain financially. So I don't think we're ever going to catch up to this loss of our redevelopment income as a result of our population dip, but I think we need to at least make it a position where those who want to do best for the city are able to at least support their family and not go into poverty by donating their time and efforts to the city.
Mr. Mnuchin?
I do have a concern. I did vote for the increase for the redevelopment fees back in 2000. When was it?
2002.
2002, was it? And that was fine because it was within the bounds of legality in terms of population. And now that we're down, that's okay as well. My concern is that, this year, as we dealt with our employees, and this year, I don't have an issue with this year's compensation or, paying health insurance, that's fine. But considering the morale of the organization and considering that, and I want to talk about the future increases of the 5% that we're discussing a minute ago. I just don't want that to be automatic in the future, because it just doesn't bode well for the organization as a whole. When we are asking employees to not take any increases, pay additional funds for the increases of their health insurance premium as well as contributions to their pension. This year we're taking a 40% cut in our pay, so this year I understand. However, in the future, I just don't want it to be automatically increased by 5% without council action. I think it should require a council action if if it's going to be automatic. It shouldn't be automatic. It should require a council action.
And by law, it does require council
Okay.
action. So
All right.
the comment here is that you could increase it 5% per year since the last increase.
Okay.
And council has the authority to do that. But
In today's, we can do that as a council or redevelopment agency now, which
Council.
will take into effect
Yeah.
in 2013.
right.
Okay. But after that, it would still require a council action. It's not automatic.
That's correct.
That is my
And
concern.
in fact, in 2013, you would then have had 2 more years go by, and the council then could take an action to increase it another 10% potentially.
Correct.
But that also wouldn't be effective until the next council were seated.
And just to be clear, that these increases are only on the council salary. It's not on the.
Right.
It's not.
And-
So when we're talking 5% increase, we're talking 5% increase of, let's say, today's salary of $1,100, which
That's
is
right.
approximately $55.
Right. And let me again point out, I too am concerned about how any actions like this affect morale and our ability to deal with our employees. But my encouragement to you would be to take this step relative to the 4 years that you can do catch up. It doesn't become effective in 2013. Do it now, because it is human nature to forget about, frankly, the reduction that you're taking if you were to consider it later.
Right.
Under the best of circumstances, the city will save somewhere between $48,000 and $50,000 in change, and $76,000, even with these adjustments that you're making. If you don't include the compensation adjustment that becomes effective in 2013, there's about a $76,000 a year savings taking place here, even netting out the increase in the health insurance. Even if you include the increase that won't take effect until 2013, the savings is somewhere between $55,000 and $60,000 a year. So in that context, even with those adjustments that some of you may never receive in terms of the compensation, you're still saving at least $55,000 a year. From the standpoint of numbers of people, that's just 5 of you. There's no other group in the city that has afforded that kind of a concession in all of the last 3 years of our reductions. So I would encourage you to do it as one package, even though some of you may not benefit from the bulk of it.
Mr. Weaver, did you make a motion? I thought I heard you.
Well, I'd be
Indicating-
happy to, but it's an urgency ordinance for introduction
We could just-
first.
Yeah, to introduce the ordinance as the first item, and then
The ordinance is for the reduction in the salaries.
that's correct.
I'll be glad to introduce the urgency ordinance, because I know it's very urgent that we start saving city money. And for second, for giving direction, I'd like to make a motion giving direction to set the health increase at $350, whatever, for each of us, uniform.
So you want let me just, for
Rephrase
clarification,
it.
Councilman, you want the increase in the city's contribution to be the same amount across the board?
If I may, I think it's better to just do it as the percentage, like they're saying, to cover whatever that gap is, because it varies from person to person, depending on your package, if you have a family or not.
Well, I don't know, my motion was, we each,
Just another observation. You're talking about a $100 difference. It's far easier, given the variations among council members, if you just pick up the cost. Frankly, you'll spend more time trying to make an adjustment. There's maybe a $100 difference based on our current package. So
Okay.
my encouragement would be is just pick up the cost. The cost is nominal. The savings is still significant. It's
Okay.
probably easier to administer.
do that, and the motion, and the direction and the motion to bring back a 5% potential increase, put it on the agenda.
Okay, so the motion will be to increase, to have the city pick up 100% of the medical contribution and to bring back an ordinance adjusting council salaries by 5% over the last 4 years to be
That's right.
effective April of 2013.
That's my motion.
We need a roll call and a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Menuchyan,
Okay, yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Friedman.
Yes.
Will be adjourned for the council.
Second?
Second.
Council is adjourned?
Move to adjourn for the redevelopment agency.
Second.
We are adjourned for redevelopment. Just to be clear, that's to bring back a motion, right? It wasn't the motion itself. Okay. That's what I thought.
We'll
Okay.
bring back a resolution on the medical and a ordinance on council salaries.
Okay.